guys, I don't know if you know this, but Reuters is partnered with the World Economic Forum, right?
No, they're not.
They are. But they're fact checking these conspiracies and the smears against the World Economic Forum, right? And so they wrote an article defending them from these conspiracies. And
Oh,
I'm going to read some of it because, as you know how this is going to go, right? So they say, fact check, multiple misleading suggestions made in documentary on the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is about a documentary made about the pandemic, but they talk about the World Economic Forum on here. And I haven't seen this documentary, so I really want to watch it. So they mentioned Bill Gates. The footage directs attention to Event 201, a pandemic simulation held in October 2019, months before the outbreak of COVID-19. It was a tabletop event held by Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, along with the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Nothing to see here. There is a suggestion in the documentary that Gates and others had prior knowledge of the COVID-19 pandemic due to the similarity with Event 201, which stimulated the outbreak of a novel zoonotic coronavirus. Johns Hopkins has since stressed that Event 201 was organized due to a, quote, growing number of epidemic events, unquote, and they give you a link for that. It was based around a fictional coronavirus pandemic and designed to model preparations and response. It was just a coincidence. That's it. That it just so happens that months before the pandemic, right? Because I'm agreeing with what they're saying. It was just a coincidence. Okay, there's no evidence that it was anything more than a coincidence. Okay, no evidence whatsoever. You just know the connections with Johns Hopkins, Bill Gates, the World Economic Forum, and the history. And so so they talked about the animal trials, and then they say in September 2020, Pfizer and BioNTech released information about the effects of their mRNA vaccine in mice and non-human primates. Moderna has also released similar information. And they're talking about the trials, and they say more information regarding this debunked video can be read in the Reuters check here. Then they talk about 5G and all this other stuff. And they say the first known outbreak has been traced back to Wuhan, China. They're still on that. And then, and then they mentioned the Great Reset, right? So this is what I wanted to get to too, is it's the Great Reset. So the theme linking many of the earlier topics in the documentary is the suggestion that world leaders and society's elite are working together to create a world with, quote, harsh tyrannical rules governed by a centralized totalitarian state. That is totally not happening. It suggests, will be brought into being the Great Reset, a sustainability plan proposed by the World Economic Forum, WEF. So again, even Reuters has to admit the Great Reset is a real thing. It was a specific topic talked about at the World Economic Forum. The documentary then refers to a social media clip from the WEF that makes 8 predictions about the world in 2030, which is Agenda 2030. We talked about this on Wednesday. What day is it? The footage specifically highlights 3 points: that people will cease to own anything, everything will be rented and delivered by drone, and Western values will be pushed to breaking point. You guys heard me read the article. That's the article. That's what they say. However, this is not what the Great Reset proposes, nor does it have anything to do with the social media clip. The World Economic Forum pitched the idea of a Great Reset on capitalism in June 2020 after noting the pandemic was increasing inequality. It encourages 3 components, including asking government to improve fiscal policy, implement overdue reforms such as wealth taxes, and push for the efforts that boosted health sectors in 2020 to be replicated across other sectors and bring about an industrial revolution. The 4th industrial revolution that we have been talking about. So they admit it, but then they're like, no, this is good. Okay, so stakeholder capitalism, that's what they mean by addressing so they're revamping it as stakeholder capitalism. So that's the other thing. And then the other thing that they're talking about is a wealth tax. Well, if I'm rich and you're making me pay a certain amount of taxes, I can easily bypass those taxes because you're not addressing offshore. You're not addressing the other loopholes that are in there. So a wealth tax isn't going to fix anything, right? And so they said that this has nothing to do with the Great Reset. It's a video formulated after members of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Councils made various predictions about the world in 2030, whether good or bad. Danish politician Ida Auken, who wrote about the prediction that people would no longer own anything, added an author's note to her piece to stress it was not her vision of utopia. So, yeah, she said some people have read this blog as my utopia or dream of the future. It is not. It is a scenario showing where we could be heading for better or for worse. I wrote this piece to start a discussion about some of the pros and cons of the current technological development. When we are dealing with the future, it is not enough to work with reports. We should start discussions in many new ways. So, verdict, misleading, right? Okay,
misleading.
Okay, but before I hear from you, Pasta, I just want to say, but just so you guys know, it would have been nice for Reuters to let people know that there's a conflict of interest because Reuters is partnered with the World Economic Forum for exclusive content distribution on Reuters Connect. Okay, it's the world's largest multimedia news provider, and it announced a partnership with the World Economic Forum a few months ago, a year ago, actually, technically a year ago, literally. And they were talking about how they're going to have, a direct partnership with video, audio, text, photo content, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so. Yeah, so the fact checkers are partnered with the thing they're fact checking. So there's no conflict of interest here. I mean, I would certainly think that there would be a conflict of interest. And by the way, notice that article mentioned the COVID pandemic. Well, this is Jim Smith. He's a second board member. Jim Smith the second. He's a board member of Pfizer, chairman of Thomson Reuters Foundation, former president and CEO of Reuters. Okay, he's a board member of Pfizer. Okay, I just want to throw that out there. He's a non-executive director of Pfizer. He also serves on the board of the World Economic Forum's Partnering Against Corruption initiative, and is a member of the Forum's International Business Council, as well as the International Advisory Councils of the British American Business and the Atlantic Council. And you can see him right here, James C. Smith, age 57, President and Chief Executive Officer of Thomson Reuters Corporation, the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals since January 2012. Its Chief Operating Officer from September 2011 to December 2011, and its CEO from 2008 to 2011. So my issue is, Pasta, is this not a conflict of interest on both ends? I don't know. It's one gigantic conspiracy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is falling into like this mass formation, right? This mass psychosis of sorts. Like you just keep repeating a lie and it becomes the truth, and people just tend to follow along. This article that we were just reading when it came from Reuters, it reminded me a lot of what Dr. Fauci said when he was first questioned by Rand Paul. Once again, Senator Paul, you are wrong. That experimenting is not taking place. If it is taking place, it's happening in North Carolina. Like, Dr. Fauci, you just said it wasn't, but if it is, it's what? And that's the type of language and the type of mental psyops that's going on, this conditioning of sorts that even when it is true, and they're laying it out, event 201, it might have been almost exactly like a dry run for what was to come for COVID, but it had nothing to do with it, fam, nothing whatsoever, Event 2030, same thing, no, not at all. Not that they're still trying to push us to be scared, stay at home, depend on technology, listen to their type of news, their journalism, their propaganda. I mean, it's as clear as day, ladies and gentlemen. And we went over the lockstep document the other day by the Rockefeller Foundation that was written 10 years before this thing even happened. And there were so many damn similarities. I mean, there is a global agenda by the predator class to control the majority of people on this planet. And that's why I agree with people like Steve when they say there's no such thing as nation states at this moment right now. Nation states, the only real nation states that are existing are like states like Nicaragua, right? Like that's a fucking,
and they're in danger.
Yeah.
And all these really like more self-sustaining autonomous areas are in danger from somebody or something. So I always say watch your back, even if you're making alliances, because when you're making alliances with big guys, You got to be careful. So the other thing I wanted to say is if you go to the worldforum.org and you click on their partners, you will find BlackRock as one of the World Economic Forum's partners. And they describe BlackRock as a global leader in investment management, risk management, and advisory services for institutional and retail clients, that they help clients around the world meet their goals and overcome challenges with a range of products that include separate accounts, mutual funds, iShares, and pooled investment vehicles, risk management and all that. So this is, they're speaking positively about BlackRock, and BlackRock is a partner. We know what BlackRock has done. They are buying up all the property they can get their hands on, and they're buying up companies and companies of companies. And so that's what they're doing. So I wanted to look at this article by Yahoo News, because they mentioned the Great Reset, and they talk about BlackRock is fueling a $120 trillion transformation on Wall Street. Okay. And they're not, it says big money is turning its back on companies that aren't conforming to one simple idea: sustainability. Interesting. Why would such a big investment company that owns so many smaller companies really focus on investment on sustainability? And these, BlackRock, within a year, 77% of institutional investors will stop buying into companies that aren't in some way sustainable. And the new king of Wall Street is leading the charge. BlackRock, with over $7 trillion in assets under management, says its clients will double their ESG investments in just 5 years. Money managers on the street are saying climate change is their top concern, and a leading criteria when determining where they put their money to work. Sustainable assets already account for $17.1 trillion, but there could be as much as $120 trillion up for grabs. And that's exactly why sustainable stocks are outperforming the market. They are the new go-to investment, could be far better than gold. The sector is a safe haven in that the road to sustainability is long, and it's not just big money's downside protection against ESG-related risk. And so I wanted to point this out there, because a lot of people think that automatically, because somebody invests in sustainability, that they're good, that they want something good for climate change. This is why when I was talking about Don't Look Up and being World Economic Forum propaganda, it's because one of the main characters in there, a lot of the people involved actually, but particularly Leonardo DiCaprio, is part of the World Economic Forum partnership. And so when you're talking about a film that's supposedly tackling climate change, when if you actually look at the film, they're basically saying that their whole thing was like, you beg the government, if the government doesn't do it, we're all going to die, essentially. And so they painted the people that were mad at the government as these lazy people who would just go and burn things and just be useless doomers. And that was, Jennifer Lawrence's boyfriend, Timothée Chalamet, in the movie. They were just like, you lazy and throwing things and burning things. And so there was no like solution. There was no like, hey, let's get everybody to rise up and take on these elites. It was just like, well, the government isn't doing anything. We tried. No, because that's not it. And so that's why I didn't like that movie, because a lot of people liked it. And to me, it was just like propaganda. And there was a lot of like politicizing of it. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of money to be made in the sustainability movement, in the climate change movement. That whole thing has been co-opted from people who actually wanted to stop climate change and wanted to actually address the concerns. It's been co-opted because now all you have is a lot of people making a lot of money based on sustainability. And BlackRock, because they are really good at what they do, they see where the writing on the wall is headed. They see that they can make money. So they're investing. And that's what the World Economic Forum is about. It's about these companies investing in sustainability. But what does that mean? It means they're going to privatize and own everything. And you're not going to own anything. Nature's not going to be free, and so on and so forth.
You just talk about, BlackRock, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to commodify every single part of Mother Nature out there whatsoever. It's so funny when you look at that BlackRock website. It's the Davos agenda right underneath there. And BlackRock is the reason why the housing situation is the way it is. They're buying up trailer parks, they're buying up land, they're buying up houses. I get text messages all the day and phone calls, fam, about people going, hey man, is your house still on the market? My old apartment stuff, my family owned. I'm like, no, man, it's been sold. There are not enough houses to buy right now. There's a housing shortage. And what's going on is BlackRock buying up a lot of these houses, buying up a lot of the trailer parks and all these communities and stuff like that, because they want to be your daddy. They don't want the next generation to own, right? They want us to rent from them. And that's what's going on. Only Vanguard is probably equally just as awful as BlackRock and doesn't give a damn. And also to the point of Hollywood too, right? You know, I mean, we all understand and know what Hollywood is right now. It's part of the friggin' deep state of sorts, you know? I mean, it's all about the programming and the conditioning and what they're doing. So many saviors. There's always going to be somebody to save you one night. They're glorifying the CIA and the FBI. Every year there's multiple CIA and FBI movies that are made where the agents are like friendly, cool guys. The newest one, I think, is Jason Statham. You know, he's from he was from the movie with Brad Pitt, with the Guy Ritchie movie Snatch. You know, then he came over and he started making a lot of movies. Buff guy, bald head, but they're glorifying, you know, the FBI and the intelligence agencies. Also, what they're doing now too, fam. And one of the new movies, it's a movie about 5 intelligence agencies: China, United States, Colombia, and I think Great Britain's another one. 5 ladies from these agencies working together to now go after their common enemy, hackers, because hackers are taking control of things. And who do they make look like a hacker right now in the public eye? Julian Assange. Oh, he told Chelsea Manning to hack into the computer for them, and that's why they're going after him. So they understand they're conditioning people in Hollywood to tell you who the enemy is, right? And so they condition people that way. And they just follow it up. We have Empire Education, we have Hollywood, we have the mainstream media, which is really the mainstream propaganda. It's scary times right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I mean, but they're exposing themselves right now too.